Hey guys, welcome to the PI podcast. Ian and Pratesh here. We've got episode 4. We've got a lot of news. So if you are on a long car ride, make sure you buckle up and turn the radio up a little bit more so you can hear it all. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you get comfortable because this is probably going to be a longer than normal episode. And if you're just heading to work, make sure you pause it at a good stopping point so you can return to it when you get off work to go home. And I'll let Pritesh take it away.
Yeah, definitely grab a snack if you're watching on YouTube at home. Just grab a snack, grab your drink, get ready. We're gonna be talking a lot of stuff that happened this week. And starting off, we got some big news that happened today. Tom Brady unretires from the NFL. And there's some tweets I saw that were saying, "Oh, this is shocking. An NFL world is shocked. Like this is the biggest news that happened this week." No, it's not the biggest news that happened this week. It may be at top of our list because people want to hear about it,
It literally just happened.
but I don't think this is shocking news because there's been so many reports of Tom Brady. Oh, he's going to the 49ers. Oh, he's going to another team. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, Tom Brady probably could retire if he wanted. So I wasn't too surprised when this decision happened. We've talked a lot about NFL and in our podcast, and it just felt like this wasn't anything big and shocking. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh. I was going to say it wasn't shocking. And the big thing was last season he ended the season out on top. And he always said he didn't want to end out on top with some left in the tank. And obviously he has something in the tank. He ended the season playing all 17 games, not missing any. He had 5,300 yards passing. He had 43 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, a 67.5% completion percentage, and a 102.1 rating, which was up there with among the best in the season. And I had already said I thought he should have been the MVP last year. Aaron Rodgers got it, not snubbing him or anything, but Tom Brady had the stats for it.
yeah. No, Tom Brady just 5,300 yards for a 44-year-old man. That's so
Yeah,
unheard of. And when he plays this year, he's going to be 45 and the oldest starting quarterback in NFL history. That's another stat he's going to break.
yeah.
And it's going to mess up that NFC South a little bit. Because we thought that the Falcons were going to win that, or most likely going to win that division because there was no quarterbacks in that division. And speaking of the NFC South, another big news that happened, very big news, for my team at least. Calvin Ridley just got suspended for gambling, and Calvin Ridley he took a mental health break at the half point of last season, and now he wants to gamble and lose it all, and now he's suspended for a year. But but being suspended for a year is crazy in itself because Ray Rice beat up a woman and he only got 6 games suspension. So how does that happen? How do you let someone beat up a woman and come back 6 games and then he gambled. He gambled on the NFL. Let's spend him whole year. So Calvin Ridley, mother fluffing gambling, it just ruins this whole season because he's going to be a wide receiver. He was supposed to be the Falcons wide receiver one. Calvin Ridley was supposed to help this team out and get them to the playoffs. And now we have to re-sign Cordero Patterson. We have to re-sign Foyesay Luokun. We have to. Matt Ryan's main weapons are Russell Gage, Olamide Zaccheaus again, and if we can't find a wide receiver, then Calvin really just screwed this mother muffin up. All right, you know what? I'm done. All right, Ian, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I agree. I obviously do not think players should be allowed to gamble on the NFL. I don't think that's right. And the 1 year suspension for something like that, not the end of the world because I do think that it should be like one of the higher penalties. But like you said, if you're going to give someone a year for placing a $1,500 parlay, you need to give the guy that beat his wife or beats his kids or domestic violence, whatever it is, they should be getting 3 years suspension at least, or banned from the league completely. It's the I don't even know what to describe it as, but that whole consequences need to be reworked for everything that happens in the NFL.
Yeah, that higher ups need to look at this. I mean, there's so many people, not just Roger Goodell, even though Roger Goodell should have said something at least. It's so weird. It's like, I mean, the NFL's for money. I think everyone knows this at this
Yeah.
point. The NFL's for money, so they don't really care. But in other news, and got a big trade in Bears trading Khalil Mack to the Los Angeles Chargers.
So we had said this already. One, the division is super tough to compete in. The Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, which we'll talk about in a second, and the Raiders are always kind of in the mix. But obviously, the Chiefs are who the Chiefs are. The Chargers, we had said, I mean, they were on the cusp of making the playoffs. They literally needed to tie or win that game to make the playoffs against the Raiders. And we said on a previous episode that the Chargers need to focus on their defense. Their offense, perfectly fine. Justin Herbert's going to keep growing. They still got Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. I mean, they just re-signed Mike Williams, so they've got a lot of pieces on that offense. It was the defense that really fumbled the bag last year. But now they just picked up one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, paired up with one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, Joey Bosa.
That combination, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, is gonna be crazy. That NFC West is stacked. That NFC West, AFC West, my bad, is going to be probably the best division of football right now. And we still got even just as big news in Aaron Rodgers, and Packers fans should be happy about this. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers agreed to a deal to keep him in Green Bay. It was reported that it was a 4-year deal, but Aaron Rodgers tweeted and said that that none of this was true, and the official details haven't been released yet, so we still don't know how long that deal was for. But I expect it to be within the range of a year, probably a year. So you'll have Aaron Rodgers back for one more season, and he won the MVP this year. Doesn't mean they're going to the playoffs, but I don't expect them to. I don't expect them to win in the playoffs again and make the Super Bowl. It's one more chance for Aaron Rodgers, so he can say one last goodbye. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, that the big thing with the Green Bay Packers, and I'm gonna skip a couple bullet points this time. With they also franchise tagged Devontae Adams, so now they have the duo back for the one last dance. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they get far in the playoffs. Maybe they make the Super Bowl this year somehow, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna keep doing this. Because I think that might be part of the reason they haven't made the Super Bowl in a while. And the NFC has a couple teams that are like, these guys are going to be in contention. It's always Green Bay, Rams, 49ers. It's the Buccaneers again. These guys are always like the main guys. And then you have a couple dark horse teams that, do their thing. But the Rams probably going to keep everybody that they have. The Buccaneers, I assume, are going to keep most of their team. So the Green Bay Packers being able to keep Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams is huge for them to be able to compete.
Yeah, and go that is going to be huge for them. Like you said, that NFC with Tom Brady being back, it's gonna mess up that one last dance, sort of, because he's gonna have to go through Tom Brady. Obviously, I fully expect to see that in a playoff game. And in other quarterback news, probably I think the biggest news of all this week, that and count Ridley, the Seahawks officially traded Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick. And Denver also sent D tackle Shelby Harris and tight end Noah Fant. And Noah Fant is a good tight end, and D tackle Shelby Harris still get it done.
Yeah, that. Yeah, that. Um, 'Cause, I mean, the Seahawks, they have a lot of talent. 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 They have a lot of talent
Is it worth
You
all
know,
that?
well, here's the thing. We talked about it last week about Washington offering them the two picks, and we were like, why would you turn that down? Why do you turn down two first round picks? Well, the reason is because they got a steal of a deal from the Denver Broncos. They're set. Okay, so they are going through a rebuild. This is going to be the shortest rebuild in history because you just got a good piece for your defensive line. You just got a good tight end. You just got two more first round picks on top of the two you already have. Now you have another second round pick, two second round picks, sorry, and you got a nice fifth round pick that can be used to, um, for whatever you want, really. But Russell Wilson's not worth that much. I'm going to go on a hot take real quick because one, I do think Russell Wilson's a good quarterback, and I understand the Broncos wanting him for that division because they need a good quarterback in that division. However, I think he's still the third or maybe even fourth best quarterback in that division still. I'll give people Derek Carr is probably not as good as him, but Derek Carr is a good quarterback. He's definitely underrated. And I think Russell Wilson's a little overrated. And I'm just going to name off his stats. And I guarantee if I went to someone like Derek Carr, their stats are very similar. But anyway, Russell Wilson has never thrown for over 35 touchdowns but one time in his career, and he hit 40 once. And that was in 2020. So maybe that's why everybody's thinking he's going to be like the next Patrick Mahomes in that division. He's never thrown for over 4,200 yards, and he's always had good wide receivers. And I understand the offensive line hasn't been the best, but he's always had DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and before DK Metcalf, he had Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett. And he's had Tyler Lockett in between the span of Doug Baldwin and DK Metcalf. So he's always had a wide receiver. It's not like he's some guy that's playing for the Jets or something and only throwing 31 touchdowns for the Jets with no wide receiver help. He has good pieces. So I don't know. What do you think of the trade?
I think it's a good trade for Denver. I think they were willing to give up whatever they had to get their quarterback because that's really what the Denver needed. They needed a key piece, which was their quarterback. That's all they needed. I think they can go on a run these next couple of years just because they found a quarterback. But also, in Seattle, he also had a Golden Tate as well. So he's had, like you said, he's always had receivers around him. And now he's going to a team that has receivers with Jerry Jeudy and just some others, Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton. They're all decent receivers. And Seattle, on the other hand, they're releasing All Pro Bobby Wagner as well, and they are listening to offers for Tyler Lockett. So, like you said, they're going full rebuild mode. So it's kind of interesting because it might be the shortest rebuild because they got Shelby Harris and Noah Fant, a good tight end. So they got some pieces back. They still have Jamal Adams. So we'll see. And also with Von Miller potentially coming back to Denver, that just boosts their chances even more.
Yeah, I forgot about Von Miller. The likelihood of him going back to Denver is huge. Like, I think that's the number one destination right now, whether they have money or not, because he's going to want to go back home. And especially now that they have a quarterback, the only reason Denver let him go to the Rams was because they wanted to give him a ring, I think. I think they respected Von Miller as a player, that they traded him to the Rams for basically eating his entire cap space and getting like a very small pick for him. They gave him to the Rams. Like, it wasn't like I think they did that specifically for him to try to get a ring because they knew they couldn't do that in Denver. I think they have that much respect for Von Miller. They did that for him.
Yeah, you're totally right. I totally agree with you. And Russell Wilson is just going to help that thing. Another interesting thing is that Peyton Manning, his first Super Bowl with the Broncos, he lost to Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. Given that they had the Legion of Boom then, but
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy just to see that come full circle, and now Russell Wilson just got traded to Denver, and he's gonna go
Yeah,
on that maybe go on that run that Peyton Manning did.
Yeah, I heard it's the first time a quarterback has beaten a team and then went to the team he beat afterwards
That's
in the
that's
Super Bowl.
that's crazy. That's crazy, and I'm happy for Russell Wilson. I don't know if he was worth that much because Denver gave up a lot. They gave up
You
one.
made a good point though that Denver really did just need the quarterback. So it's not like Washington, who's not really, they could be in a place to contend, but I don't think they're close enough to where they'd be willing to give up that much for one piece because they still need pieces all around.
Yeah, and talking about Washington, the Colts just traded Carson Wentz to them for two third-round picks, and Carson Wentz is a guy that had a decent season in Indianapolis, but kind of got the icing on the cake or cutting the cake at the end of the season when they lost against the Jaguars. We're gonna keep bringing that up because the Colts all only had
Yeah.
to beat the Jaguars and they made the playoffs. I even think they make it to the divisional round if they win that game against the Jaguars and make it. But Carson
Yeah.
Wentz played. I don't know how he played. He didn't play good, so that was a big reason behind this.
Yeah, I don't. So Carson Wentz has obviously we've seen him in his should have won MVP in the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. He went down. Nick Foles took over, won the Super Bowl. We all know that story. But Carson Wentz has good potential, but it kind of gets lowered by the fact that he makes a lot of dumb mistakes. He's he will throw the ball while getting sacked and get a pick six. Like he's not afraid. He really tries to force the ball a little too much sometimes, and when he shouldn't. You know that a lot of players are a little too cautious. He's like the complete opposite. He's like, I'm gonna make a play right here. He could have three D linemen on him throwing against three safeties, and he doesn't care. He's making the throw, and sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. So I think that's his biggest knock.
Given though this year he's been a lot more protective with the football, other than
Yeah,
that pass and some other passes this year, but he's been pretty well with the football at least this year. I mean, he still makes questionable decisions, and that still sticks in my mind. The spinning around and just throwing it, but
yeah,
he also in that game he did come back and scored a tying touchdown to make that game to bring that game into overtime.
yeah. Like I said, I think he's a good quarterback. I honestly think this is a win for both teams. The Colts are in a place where they really do just need a quarterback. Last year, it didn't work with Carson Wentz. So instead of sticking with him and eating the cap, they're trading him away. They don't get a ton for it, but they have the cap space back now. So really, it was a win-win. The Washington football team are now the Commanders. They they get to see what their team's capable of with a slightly better quarterback than what they've been having. And I mean, Carson Wentz still has a lot of weapons on that team. So, I mean, Carson Wentz can throw a deep ball, and Scary Terry can run fast. So, it should be an interesting duo.
Yeah, there was a lot of reports near the end of the season that Taylor Heineke was fighting for the spot for like to be their franchise quarterback, and I never thought of him. We talked about this in a previous podcast that we never thought that he'd be the guy, and this just brings a whole lot of competition for Taylor Heineke, and to prove himself because if he can outplay Carson Wentz, who knows? But
He'll be a starter. He'll
he'll
be a
be a
starter.
starter for sure. And Washington, they went big with this. They got a defense that's coming
Yeah.
together, and they got an offense now. Carson Wentz, if he plays well, then he's gonna be good.
Yeah, this is
And
big for Carson because he'll get another chance to prove himself. And I think the Eagles, I think the drafting Jalen Hurts kind of ruined the relationship there. He got a chance in Indianapolis with a good team, but they were very run heavy with Jonathan Taylor being their leading back. So maybe he just needs to let the reins loose a little bit, throw it a little bit more, and who knows what will happen. Because in the Jaguar game, they kept running the ball with Jonathan Taylor, even though they kept stopping him, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, because when you have someone like a Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, you have to keep feeding them, even if they're not having the greatest game, because that's when they make plays, when they touch the ball 15, 16, 18, 20 times, whether they're getting 2 yards a carry or not. So I think maybe they design a little bit of an offense where uh, Terry does a little bit more with the ball. Who knows?
Yeah, and Ian, you said it well. You said it well. And now we're moving on to another trade that happened, and there are so many trades this week. It was just a crazy week
This
in the
was a big week.
NFL, and uh, we mentioned last podcast that Amari Cooper was going to be released or traded, and now he was officially been traded to the Cleveland Browns for a fifth and sixth round pick, and the Browns also got a sixth round and Amari Cooper.
Yes. So as a Jaguar fan, I'm a little upset because the fact that they got him for a 6th round pick.
Yeah, even the Falcons could have got him for that much too, honestly.
We had the cap space, Amari Cooper, and a 6th round for a Browns 5th and a 6th round. So basically, they swapped 6th and gave up a 5th for Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper is a true wide receiver 1. Now, I had Amari Cooper on my fantasy team last year. He did well in some games, didn't do well in others. But he was sharing targets with Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz, CeeDee Lamb. So, and he's got Zeke and Tony Pollard in the background. So, like, his numbers weren't as great as they could be, but he's still a wide receiver 1, and any team in the NFL should. For a 5th-round pick, I would have gave up a 3rd for Amari Cooper. If I'm the Jaguars and I, like, really want him, I would have gave up a 3rd or a 2nd, easily.
Yeah, no, Amari Cooper is still only 27, and he still has a lot
Yeah.
left in him, and he's a true wide receiver 1. Amari Cooper is just a really good receiver, and it's weird that they decided to pay, that they decided to keep some of their other receivers and not keep Amari Cooper, because you could have easily let one of your other receivers go and then pay Amari Cooper as well. You could have still had that duo. But to give him up for a 5th round, I don't know if you're getting anything out of it. I think the Cowboys were like, oh, we don't want him anymore. He kind of got injured a little bit, and he's aging, but he's only 27. That doesn't make any sense. Um, but I think it's a good trade for both teams. And the Browns are going to have a true wide receiver 1. I have him on my fantasy team. I just traded back for him because I traded Amari Cooper away last season. But I got him
Ooh.
back. So now I think he's going to have a little more fantasy value, even though his fantasy value went down. I don't think that's the case because he's going to have Baker. And if Jarvis does get traded and the Browns have allowed him to seek a trade, then Amari Cooper is going to be that main guy Baker goes to. And he's going to have all the yards and all the touchdowns. And I'm predicting a 1,500-yard receiving season and at least 12 touchdowns.
Big news, real quick. The Cowboys are giving wide receiver Michael Gallup a 5-year deal worth $62.5 million. So that's about $12 million a year, which goes to show that's why they released Amari Cooper. Now they have that cap space for sure to do this deal with Michael Gallup.
Yeah. I don't get why you pay Michael Gallup, but you don't pay Amari Cooper. I think Amari Cooper's the better wide receiver there. But I guess, I don't know if I.
Well, there's an $8 million a year difference. Amari Cooper was set to make $20 million this year. Michael Gallup will only make 12 this year. I'm thinking that's probably why, but like you said, Amari Cooper is the better wide receiver.
Yeah. And Michael Gallup is a decent receiver as well. No shame to
Yeah,
him at all. He's been stepping up even stepping up in that wide receiver 2 role when Amari Cooper had a hamstring injury a little bit. And
yeah.
I guess the Browns got a really good receiver in Amari Cooper, and I'm excited to see what he does.
I think they'll do their best to keep Landry as well. I don't see Landry walking. Could
He,
happen, but I don't see it. I think they pair up with each other.
that'd be really good to see and imagine. This is not likely to happen, but imagine Odell is a free agent and they just try to sign him too.
Somehow one back.
Yeah, and
But and I also don't see them giving Baker Mayfield one more shot and taking away his biggest target. I don't see them doing that. They have to keep Landry.
it'd be weird. It'd be weird if they didn't, but unless Jarvis Landry something in that organization or the coaches something happened.
Yeah,
But
true.
yeah, and now we're moving on to all the franchise tags because a lot of people franchise tagged their players this week, and we're starting off with Bengals. and they franchise tagged Jesse Bates, who has been a really good safety. He got a pick in
Mhm.
that Super Bowl on Matthew Stafford in the corner end zone. It was a really good pick, and I think this just basically just helps them build for long term on their defense.
Yeah,
And
that was a huge pickup. I mean, you got to keep Jesse Bates. He's arguably top two player on your team. I'll give you Hendricks on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, on the top two on the defensive side of the ball, not on the team. But I'll give you Hendricks at number one if you wanted that. You know, they signed him to the big deal last year, but Jesse Bates, 100%, you got to keep him.
yeah, Jesse Bates is a really good safety, and this is no shock at all. On the AFC side again, we have the Chiefs. Also, they franchise tagged Orlando Brown, their starting tackle, and protecting Mahomes was one of the big things this year, and they did it. But unfortunately, they didn't win the AFC Championship against a quarterback who didn't have an offensive line, which is kind of
Yeah.
weird. But this is just boosting that O line a little bit.
Yeah. Going back to the Browns, we've got their franchise tagging David Njoku. Another no shock. Granted, they do have they have a really strong tight end room that I think they're going to try to keep together. Austin Hooper's no like he's a number one tight end on any other team. David Njoku, number one tight end on any other team. So this is good for Baker Mayfield in the run game. Nick Chubb's still going to have two very good blocking tight ends to block for him, and the Browns basically keeping their team together, other than OBJ last year.
Yeah. David Njoku is a really good tight end, I believe. And another big one is but the Buccaneers, just because of the news we heard now, they franchise tag Chris Godwin, and it's kind of like they knew Tom Brady was gonna come back.
Yeah.
They probably knew a few weeks ahead. Who knows? But they franchise tag Chris Godwin, so we'll still see Mike Evans and Chris Godwin next year with Tom Brady.
Yep. And the only thing that's real, I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have 24 free agents this year on their like starting side of the ball, basically. Um, so who knows about like Leonard Fournette, some of their offensive linemen. You got the center Jensen that's due to be a free agent. So we'll see what happens on the offensive side of the ball in that regard. But he's still going to have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, both number one wide receivers in the league. So he's still got his weapons.
Yeah. Staying on it, going back to the AFC now. Ian's team, the Jaguars, they just franchise tag Cam Robinson.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I seen it coming. I'm a little worried now. So I agree that Cam Robinson or DJ Chark were the two that you use it on. But now that I've seen all the wide receivers are pretty much gone from free agency, I'm a little worried that they didn't use their franchise tag on DJ Chark. But you got to protect Trevor, so I agree with Cam Robinson. Um, but now you're looking at like Allen Robinson, um, DJ
OBJ
Chark,
possibly.
OBJ possibly, but they didn't go after him last year when he hit the waiver wire, so I don't see him. I don't see them pursuing him this year, especially after he's injured. But this brings up who's going number one now, because we've had Evan Neal selected at number one. Hutchinson's going to be number one, maybe. There's a lot of guys that could go number one. I think when you franchise tag Cam Robinson, unless you tagged him to trade him, I think Hutchinson might be the number one overall pick now.
I agree with you. I think the Jaguars did it to make sure they had linemen, so that way they didn't have to go out and draft a lineman. And they potentially could do Hutchinson. They could draft Aiden Hutchinson. He's a really good pass rusher on that team, and he's going to be a really good pass rusher in the future. And going back to the Packers, they're expected to release Zadarius Smith, and that saves them $15 million in cap space. And Zadarius Smith is a big piece of that defense. He's a really good pass rusher.
Yeah, I don't see how they could keep him, especially since they just signed Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. So I don't see them being able to afford him. But who knows? The cap rules are like really weird. All they have to do is convert it to a signing bonus. So Who knows?
One thing about like this is the Packers are fully committing on Aaron Rodgers to lead them to a Super Bowl and just getting rid of these defensive pieces. If Aaron Rodgers
Yeah.
doesn't get you to the Super Bowl again, that's the Packers organization. That's their coaches and front office. That's all their faults because they've wanted Aaron Rodgers to lead them to Super Bowl 4 straight years. He's gone to the playoffs and he hasn't done that. So they're giving him one more chance. And if he doesn't make the Super Bowl, I mean, you let some of your pass rushers go. You let Clay Matthews go. He was getting older. So I understand that part. Darius Smith though, I know it saves a lot of cap space, but to gamble your future on Aaron Rodgers if he's not going to get you a Super Bowl, I don't know if I would have done that.
Yeah, that's not the only gamble that was lost this past week. All right. We also got the
Yeah,
Patriots.
you heard that, Calvin,
They're
really?
releasing, yeah. Uh, Patriots released linebacker Kyle Van Noy, and J.C. Jackson is expected to test free agency. So Bill Belichick, who knows what his plan is? We know Bill Belichick is a great coach. He has a plan. He's not releasing these players without a plan. They were two of their better pieces on defense, and their defense was really good. And when you have a rookie quarterback, that doesn't have to be the guy because you have a strong defense and some weapons on offense. I'm curious to see what they're doing. I think we'll find out next week when free agency hits, but it just cleared a lot of cap space, especially if they don't keep J.C. Jackson.
Yeah. We're gonna get a lot of news and free agency, guys. So if you guys haven't checked out our TikTok, it's PI Podcast on TikTok. So go check that out. We post breaking news on everything, even before we get to the podcast. And there's gonna be a lot of news that we cover on the podcast more in depth on here. But if you guys would like to see it first and front the day of, like the hour of, even the minute of, even sometimes, go check out our TikTok. We post a bunch on there. You guys don't want to miss it. And
Yeah, we do a very good job of uploading on TikTok. Like within an hour of something happening, we pretty much upload it.
yeah, so you guys won't miss any NFL news. Just hit the link tree in the description below, and you just hit that TikTok button. In other news, though, staying in the AFC, Chiefs are expected to release Ward, and also the Chargers and 49ers are very interested. Charvarius Ward, I should say. And he's that's kind of iffy thing. I agree with the Chiefs releasing him. I mean, you could always find someone else easily. It's just one of those things you have to for the cap space and everything.
Yeah, and the Chiefs have already showed us that they're all in on their offense. They're not sticking with a defensive player as much as they will with the pieces they have on offense. Their offense is what won them a Super Bowl, so they're sticking with it. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll see next year, I guess. Um, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelsey, they're gonna have to carry the load. Um, but we'll see because we still don't know about Tyrann Matthew.
Yeah, still kind of in question about Tyrann Matthew. And same defensive side of things. The Cowboys, Demarcus Lawrence, one of their biggest, I'd say the biggest pass rusher, that they've had for a while. Demarcus Lawrence, he refused to take a pay cut, so he's probably gonna get released or traded. And he's probably gonna get released because we're so close to free agency and he hasn't been traded or anything hasn't happened yet. So I think this is a big piece of their pass rush. And I think they were trying to keep him, but with their cap space, hey, they have to get rid of him. He's aging. He's getting older, just like a lot of other players, just like Broncos did with Von Miller. They wanted to get him Super Bowl, like Ian said. And he refused to take a pay cut, so you can't really do much with that.
Yeah, and we're sticking on the defensive side of the ball. Miami is expected to be a free agent. What's his name? Emmanuel Agba. Um, Little curious to see how that turns out because at this point, I don't think the Dolphins should be losing pieces. Um, but you got to do what you got to do for the team. Agba will be a highly sought out free agent if he does become a free agent. So we'll see.
Yeah, Emmanuel. Ogba, I've seen the Dolphins. I've seen them play a couple times this year. And Emmanuel Ogba, he was pretty. He's like a beast back there in that pass rushing spot, and he does some good things. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing enough, you're not gonna be on your team. But he's gonna have interest somewhere. Someone's gonna sign him easily.
Yeah, this past year he only had 9 sacks, which isn't a. There's better defensive ends that had less sacks, but um, I think that's enough to get him on a team literally anywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that need pressure people like the Falcons and just a bunch of other teams that they really need some pass rush help. And talking about the NFC South, Saints and Panthers are interested in training for Deshaun Watson, so that kind of changes that whole NFC South again. With Tom Brady coming back, Buccaneers have a quarterback, and if the Saints or Panthers get Deshaun Watson, then that whole quarterback room's changed because we're right back to where we started. Because the Saints had Drew Brees, and the Buccaneers had Tom Brady, the Panthers had nothing, and we're back at that point again if the Saints get him. But if the Panthers get him, the Saints are kind of at that point too.
Yeah, and the Saints this past week has been restructuring a lot of deals with their players to open up their cap space because they were over the cap the most in the NFL, and now they're almost under the cap with all the stuff they've done this past week, restructuring deals with like Cameron Jordan and stuff like that. So um, we'll see. If I was Deshaun Watson, I personally would go with the Panthers because their cap situation's a little better, so maybe they can get a weapon or two. But the Saints obviously are a very good team. They have they're a team ready to compete with a quarterback.
Yeah, Sean Payton leaving is a big thing for that Saints team too. So who knows what's gonna happen? But if Deshaun Watson decides Saints or Panthers, I mean, then it's his decision. And honestly, I expected the Steelers to be looking for Deshaun Watson, but I've heard some reports or seen some reports where the Steelers aren't even interested in Deshaun Watson, which is kind of weird because they really do need a quarterback this year.
Yeah, that's kind of worrisome if you're a Steelers fan because the owner came out and said that they believe in Mason Rudolph. I'd hate to hear that as a Steelers fan. I mean, lack of judgment, one. When you decide to try to fist punch Miles Garrett, the judgment you have is just like you're on cloud nine, dude. That's like me going up to Conor McGregor, right? And just trying to sucker punch him while he's holding a helmet. Like I just lack of judgment. Lack of
Yeah,
judgment. That's all I'm gonna say on that.
Steelers need a quarterback. Steelers need a quarterback, and they're obviously don't want Deshaun Watson. So who knows? Hey, Steelers probably won't make the playoffs this year. First time Mike Tomlin. We talked about that. The Packers, talking about them again. They're discussing a long-term contract with their star corner Jared Alexander, which is a good thing because Aaron Rodgers needs the defense again. And if the defense can play the same way they played last year, they were a top 10 defense last year, which is the first time that's happened. Like I think Aaron Rodgers had never. I think Aaron Rodgers in a while. It hasn't happened in a while. So I think that's gonna be a good thing for the Packers. Honestly, this just one last goodbye. It's feeling like, and Packers fans should be really happy.
Yeah, the only way I will agree with the Packers releasing Zadarius Smith if they decide to is if they work out a new deal with Jair Alexander. That's the only way I'll agree with it.
Yeah, I I I think I just don't know about the Packers. We'll probably discuss this more in another podcast. But as we get closer to season, we'll find out some more things. And
Yeah.
also the Browns, they're not exercising Andy Janowitz's contract. It's a small news. He's a fullback. Fullbacks aren't really used as often as they once were, and this is
Yeah.
kind of being a fullback-less league. Kind of. There's some teams who use them, some teams who don't. So it's just one of those
Yep.
things.
And then OBJ is expected to re-sign with the Rams. I think if the Rams can somehow work that out, uh, I'm they're my Super Bowl favorite again on the NFC, even with
Yeah,
Tom Brady coming back.
Yeah, OBJ, he might not return till like mid-October, but I think they're okay with that. And I
I mean,
think,
that's around the time he came to the Rams anyway.
yeah, so it really doesn't, works out for them because they still got Cooper Cup, the MVP, and they still got some
And
other
Robert Woods
receivers.
coming back.
Yup, exactly. So that just helps. They can wait for OBJ if they want to resign him.
It could wait till the
Um,
playoffs.
yeah, even yeah, oh that too. Yeah, if they want to rest him even more, oh that'd be
Hmm.
scary then if he comes back a little bit. Um, in other news, Panthers, if they were to trade CMC, they went out and said they want a first round pick and another piece. That's kind of big because I know CMC has been injured the past couple of years, so he's kind of not. A lot of people have not ranked him as high as he can play just because of injuries, and I'm okay with spending a first round pick for Christian McCaffrey. I think he's worth that when fully healthy, and I think he's going to be healthy this year. And
You know
some
what's kind of crazy
what?
is a lot of people frown on drafting a running back in the first round. A lot of people do. I'm not that guy. Like Najee Harris was a great first round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Um, we don't know the Travis Etienne. We don't know if he's going to be a great first round pick, but they would be willing to trade a first round pick for CMC, which is essentially using a first round pick on a running back. And a lot of people like think that's terrible. What's your opinion on a first round running back?
If you got a once in a generation running back, you kind of have to draft him in the first round. I don't know why that's so frowned upon because you got guys like Derrick Henry, who's a talent. You got guys like Nick Chubb. You got Ezekiel Elliott. Even he's playing really good. And if a lot of teams would pay a first round pick to have just a star running back on their team, and that could just turn into like a run first heavy team like the Titans. Like they just run with
Yeah.
Derrick Henry and they've made it to the playoffs like the last 3 years. I mean that scenario works. I don't get why people frown upon first round picks on running backs because running back is a really important thing to have because if you can't run the ball, you're going to be pass happy, which this league has become pass happy. But if you don't have a good O line, if you don't have a good defense, kind of like the Falcons situation, if you can't run, you can't really pass the ball too well. And then if you don't have a defense, they're going to keep getting scored on. You're going to be down 20 points a game every game.
Yeah, I'm going to start from 2006, okay? Reggie Bush, first round pick. Marshawn Lynch, first round pick. Adrian Peterson, first round pick. CJ 2K, first round pick. I'm going to skip some of these because they weren't that great. Darren McFadden, not a bad running back for the first round. Let's see. Noshawn Marino, not a bad running back in the first round. Mark Ingram, maybe not like a super talented running back, but the longevity that he's had in the league. Let's see. Then we've got Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley. Now, Todd Gurley kind of fell off, but his entire rookie contract, he was a good running back in the league.
He was
He
top
got,
running back too. He was like the
yeah,
best running back in the
exactly,
league.
top five every year. Zeke, Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, Sony Michel, Rashad Penny, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Travis Etienne, we don't know about, and Najee Harris.
Yeah, especially looking at last year, Najee Harris. That's such a good pickup. They got a power running back, and I I think he only fumbled once this year, but before that, he's actually I don't I think I see what was he never fumbled before or fumbled only once in his career.
All right, we have breaking news. I keep refreshing Twitter, and one of the free agents, after bringing back Tom Brady, Buccaneers now bringing back his center, Ryan Jensen.
Oh man, that's just oh man. Okay, you know what,
That whole
Brady?
team's probably coming back.
Yeah, I bet.
That's a
And
huge piece. That's
well,
a
at
huge
least
piece.
it gives a chance for Matt Ryan to beat Tom Brady.
Well, we'll see if it'll happen.
It will happen. Mark my words. Mark my words.
All right. So basically, yeah, first round pick to me, if you can get an instant contributor, I'm using a first round pick. I don't now. I will say number one overall for a running back. That's pushing it. I think number four overall for Leonard Fournette a couple years ago, kind of pushing it. But instant contributors, give a first round pick. It doesn't matter if someone's going to contribute instantly. Use a pick on them.
Exactly. If you have that type of running back, all those running backs you mentioned that were taken in the first round, they're amazing or were good in those first
Good,
three
yeah.
years. And that's worth it for a team if they can get that running game going. And
Ryan Jensen's contract details just came out.
oh man.
3 year, 39 million.
Okay, well they'll have their O line for a while. Even if Tom
Will
Brady does retire again at the end of the season.
we see Tom Brady for 3 more years? Is that what that's saying?
I highly doubt
I
it.
don't think
I
so. I
highly,
don't think
highly,
so.
high. Oh, I think when he hits, I think he's gonna retire again after this year. I don't. I think his body when he hits fit 46, 47, he's gonna. You could
Yeah,
probably see a decrease in arm strength and everything.
yeah,
Um, yeah. We talked about the Colts trading Carson Wentz. Um, and one of their older tight ends, he is a solid tight end. Was a solid tight end for the Colts for a while. Jack Doyle retired from the NFL this week, and he was just a solid receiver for the
yeah,
Colts, solid tight end. He caught everything. Colts fan, you know a lot about him. Let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know what you guys think of all the trades that happened in the comment section below. Um,
yep. And then we have the Lions. They have signed Josh Reynolds to a 2 year deal worth up to $12 million.
and Josh Reynolds, he was that guy who won the Lions their first game against the Vikings in that end zone. Um, I think I think Jared Goff kind of got comfortable with his receivers, even though they were like no name receivers. I don't think anyone heard of Josh Reynolds really too much before this year. And hey, they're giving him a deal. See, prove it deal, 2 year deal to prove if he can be one of wide receiver 2 or 3 or even one for them.
Yeah, so I'm reading an article here. His salary for 2022 will only be $1.2 million. It's fully guaranteed. There's a $1.5 million signing bonus. Gets spread across 2 years. Um, a workout bonus for $50,000. So his total cap figure for 2022 is only $2 million.
Yeah. Um, yeah, they're basically it's a prove it deal. It's very well seems that way with that amount of money. Um, and talking about free agency as well. The Cardinals are probably going to release AJ Green, and some potential destinations. There's a lot of teams that need a receiver. Jaguars need a receiver. Um, but some of the big names that could be good destination for him are the Falcons, Patriots, and Panthers. They all need wide receivers. Patriots haven't had a good receiver in a while, like a true number one that can go moss people and stuff like that. AJ Green is kind of at the back half of his career, so he won't be prime AJ Green, but he can be a nice fit for a team that's looking if they don't have anything.
Yeah, I personally would like him. I would actually like Christian Kirk a little bit better, but AJ Green's a good wide receiver. I mean, he'll instantly contribute to any team he's on. I don't know
Yeah,
how much he's wanting, but he'll contribute anywhere.
yeah, I think he'll probably sign a 1 year deal with a team or even 2 years. And another receiver that is going to hit free agency is Allen Robinson. And Allen Robinson, we talked about this on our podcast. That Matt Nagy, he was kind of limiting his snaps, so he really didn't get the yards that people thought that he was going to get. And I think Allen Robinson's still good. He may even make a reunion with the Jaguars this year. I would like to see that. I think that's a good fit for him.
Yeah, I would love to see him come back to Jacksonville. Um, we need a number one wide receiver badly here, and in a perfect world, we grab either Christian Kirk or Allen Robinson, re-sign DJ Chark, and obviously keep Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, and Jamal Agnew.
Hmm.
And then the Saints, we'll go back to the Saints a little bit. Now, this is pending the Deshaun Watson situation, but they have a high interest in Tyrann Mathieu. I think they need to figure out what's going on with Deshaun Watson if he wants to come to the Saints before they can agree to any kind of payment to Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah, their cap space is crazy, and they've been. I know they've been restructuring the contracts of their players, but if Tyrann Mathieu, which I think he's gonna have high payment, they're gonna pay him. They're gonna have to pay him a lot to get him, and I don't think they
Yeah.
can do that. And talking about Buccaneers as well, they're gonna let Carlton Davis, one of their corners that was playing well for them, they're gonna let him hit free agency. So another big hit to another a small hit to their defense. I'd say.
Yeah. Their defense, we'll see how similar it looks to last year. Their offense, they're going to have to lose weapons places with Tom Brady coming back and having to re-sign some of the players. They have 24 free agents. They have to try to figure out how to pay them.
Yeah, and just resigning these players are going to be big for these teams. This is how free agency works. If you can't sign them, you're going to have to let these people go, and if you don't have the cap space, you can't re-sign them. But the Jets are re-signing offensive lineman Connor McDermott on a one-year deal. Connor McDermott, he's a solid lineman, and Jets are going to use him. Developing Zach Wilson, he's can't get hit as much as he got hit this year. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, the speaking of offensive tackles and linemen, the Ravens, Alejandro Villanova has decided to retire after a 1-year career with the Ravens.
Yeah, Alejandro Villanueva. He was, but his whole career was in Pittsburgh, and he did really well playing with Ben Roethlisberger, protecting Ben Roethlisberger, and he just signed this 1-year deal, and he's getting older, so we could see it coming. So yeah, the Ravens need to find a new alignment now, but they also cut cornerback Tavon Young, and they tendered QB Tyler Huntley. So.
That's a very good move for them to keep Tyler Huntley. Obviously, he's a very similar quarterback to Lamar. He's got speed, and he won some games when Lamar went down last year. Which is, I mean, you can't ask for more from a backup.
Yeah, some of those games that he lost, he could have won easily, and
Yeah,
he
and
played really well.
there was people on Twitter saying release Lamar and keep Tyler Huntley,
Oh my god.
which is stupid.
Yeah, that definitely is Lamar's better quarterback, but Tyler Huntley, he showed he can play, so it's gonna be interesting. It's good that they kept him just in case Lamar gets injured or something. But Tyler Huntley, if anyone wants to trade for him, they will. I don't think anyone's gonna be looking at him. So, and in other news, we got the Cardinals releasing their linebacker Jordan Hicks.
Yeah, I think this is part of Kyler Murray is wanting more money. And they also have to figure out if they want to keep AJ Green or Christian Kirk. I think they're going to try to keep one of them, but they got to make cap room. Jordan Hicks is the answer to that, I guess.
Yeah, and they still gotta pay Kyler Murray anyways because he wants the contract. So it's gonna be tough for them. Washington Commanders. They got Carson Wentz, but one of their safeties, Landon Collins, expected to be released this year. And Landon Collins, he's an okay safety. He's a hard hitter safety,
Yeah.
one of the biggest hard hitters in the league. In his prime, he was, and he on the Giants, he did play really really well. But he kind of his prime was too it's quick. I mean, it was like a 1 or 2 year thing, and a lot of teams, these are the people they're gonna a lot of cap space teams, they're gonna go grab someone easy or someone with no cap space. They're gonna grab Landon Collins off free agency.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and talking about signings before free agency, the Vikings they gave Kirk Cousins a 1 year, fully guaranteed $35 million extension. What do you think about that, Ian? Is he worth that much money?
That's really hard. I think Kirk Cousins gets a lot of hate that isn't warranted. I know he has some problems winning the big games. I know he's not going to light up the scoreboard, but the truth of the matter is the quarterback room is worth a lot of money now. You see Patrick Mahomes making $50 million a year. So while I don't think Kirk Cousins should be making $50 million a year anywhere, I don't think $35 million is a bad deal in comparison to that because he takes care of the football, doesn't make terrible mistakes, and honestly, the Vikings are kind of always in a playoff race, at least through late November. So I think that's a good deal for them,
Yeah,
personally.
and one of the interesting things that got pushed under the rug for a lot of that pushed on the rug this year. Kirk Cousins, he played a hell of a year. He had a kind of MVP like season, kind of, and he threw
Yeah.
for 4,200 yards. He had a 66% completion rating. He threw for 33 touchdowns, and the big thing is he only threw 7 interceptions. He had a really safe, really good year protecting the football, and yet they still didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad you brought those numbers up because that's a Russell Wilson type year.
Yeah, it
It's
exactly
literally a
is,
Russell Wilson year
and
with
that's
less interceptions.
yeah, and them not making playoffs is a big reason why Mike Zimmer got fired.
Yep.
And I'm interested to
Um.
see what they do next year because they still kind of have the pieces on defense a little bit.
Yeah. They just hired O'Connell from the Rams, offensive coordinator, and I think that offense is going to be explosive. Really, the offense was the issue. I mean, they've always been good. They have the pieces. I mean, they have Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, they have Dalvin Cook and Maddox in the backfield. Like they have a very good team, and they have a quarterback that manages the game, that can make the throws when he needs to. They have a good running back room, and Kirk Cousins is the type of quarterback that he has had to work with Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, and you've seen him just win. He's got two Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl ring. So I think that's a perfect pickup.
Yeah, that offense is going to be hopefully going to be explosive because they do have the pieces, like you said. Justin Jefferson is just so fun to watch. I've watched him all
Yeah,
year
I
long, and
agree.
he's just so fun to watch. Um,
I didn't think he would be that great. I thought at first it was because of Adam Thielen taking the coverage away, but now he's the number one receiver. Adam Thielen's number two now.
yeah, and that duo, they released Stephon Diggs and they're totally fine because he should kind of replace Stephon Diggs
Yep.
basically. And in other wide receiver news, the Buffalo Bills, they agreed to terms with Isaiah McKenzie on a 2 year contract, and
But this
this
is good because they might be getting rid of Cole Beasley.
yeah, and yeah, if they get rid of Cole Beasley, hey, Isaiah McKenzie, I know he's probably isn't as good as Cole Beasley, but he's decent enough to start.
Yeah, the Cardinals, speaking of people that catch the ball, are signing Zach Ertz to a 3 year deal. As a Jaguar fan, I'm a little upset about this because I was really hoping to see Zach Ertz and Arnold in the tight end room. I was hoping the Doug Peterson hire would bring in Zach Ertz because we desperately need some receivers for Trevor Lawrence. But the Cardinals signing him, great pickup for them. Actually, one more piece of news we forgot with the free or the franchise tags is the Dolphins franchise tagging Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki is another good tight end, and he's just been solid. If you saw the games he was playing this year, he would go up and catch that ball in the end
Yeah,
zone in like double coverage too. He'd moss some people, and he
yeah.
could develop really really well. And
I
then
personally really like Gesicki. I think he's not a very good blocking tight end. Obviously, that's one of his knocks, but he's basically a wide receiver at the tight end position. This past year, he had 112 targets, had almost 800 yards at the tight end. That's very good. Now, granted, people like Kelsey and Kittle get that kind of numbers every year, but Gesicki, with Tua throwing him the ball, and last year was Ryan Fitzpatrick, he still had over 700 yards. I mean, you got to franchise tag someone like that. You have to.
yeah, and you it worked out perfectly for them. I mean, he's a good tight end, and Tua's gonna love him. Regardless, still interested to see if Tua's their guy. He could be, he could not be. We're gonna find out this season. And in news with the Falcons, they are working on a deal reportedly with Cordero Patterson, which is huge news for me because Cordero Patterson shocked shocked the NFL a little bit last year. No, I don't think anyone expected him to have that much of an impact on the team. And
Yeah.
he
So, oh, go ahead. You can
you could
finish. You can finish.
yeah no and he even just as a running back, he even went out and mossed some people. I'm bringing up the Saint first time we beat the Saints this year. He literally went on the same route he ran in the first quarter. Literally won us the game for like 40 yards and just burned a corner on a simple like streak route.
Yeah, he's insanely good at the game of football. He's. I'm trying to pull up stats because here's the thing. I had Cordero Patterson on my fantasy league, and I traded for him like week 3 or week 4 because I traded DeAndre Swift for Christian McCaffrey when Christian McCaffrey got hurt and was expected to be out for the entire season, and Cordell Patterson. And the next week, Cordell Patterson got like 40 points.
Yeah,
Um,
Cordero Patterson, he had 600 yards rushing, and he also had 500 yards, almost 600 yards receiving. That's 1,200 total yards for a running back, and that's a really good season. But also, the way he was used as a wide receiver this year, when you don't have Julio
yeah.
Jones or Calvin Ridley, he was just. I just remember the game against Washington. He just went on a simple streak route and just mossed a corner and got a touchdown.
Yeah, that's the one I was. That was one of the games I was just looking at because he carried me this past year in fantasy. I traded for Christian McCaffrey. That was a terrible decision, but the DeAndre Swift for Cordero Patterson was actually a very good deal. Um, Cordero Patterson scored more than 10 points a game every season. And then that one Washington game, he scored me 30 points. So, like I said, I was very pleased with that. And honestly, I hope Falcons keep him because they know how to use him properly. He has not been used properly his entire career because he would be a, I don't think people realize how great of a player he would have been if he would have had a good coaching staff for the last 3 years.
Yeah, and Arthur Smith just opened up. That goes to show you how good Arthur Smith is as using his weapons. And
Um,
talking about
my
Washington,
Jaguars.
yeah.
Oh, you're gonna go to the Washington? Oh,
Oh,
because of Brandon Scherf, yeah.
go ahead.
The Jaguars have a strong interest in him, and we personally need the offensive line help. Um, Number one, there's two things that need to happen this offseason for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You need to protect Trevor, and you need to get receivers that can catch the ball for Trevor because Trevor and the game against the Colts showed you exactly how he can play. But we have had super inconsistent wide receivers this past year with DJ Chark going down, Marvin Jones having butterfingers, Laviska Shenault having bricks for hands. You had wide receivers running into each other, and the coaching staff is 100% to blame for that because Laviska Shenault looked really good his rookie year, and Marvin Jones in the last game of the season looked very good once they fired Urban Meyer. We just released our wide receiver coach. Super happy about that. We got Doug Peterson now that knows how to design an offense. I'm super excited for this upcoming year. I would love to see a big offensive lineman picked up for this upcoming year.
Yeah, and if they do that, I mean, it just bolsters their all line. And honestly, if they get Evan Neal first pick overall and also get Brandon Scherf,
Oh, that'd
that
be
all
huge.
line's gonna be crazy good.
And Cam Robinson was a very good left tackle for us. He only had one sack. I know a lot of people are upset with the franchise tag on him, but honestly, he is not the issue. He was not the issue at all on our offensive line. Our right side, the right guard, and the right tackle was the issue, and you can correct that with Evan Neal and Scherf.
Yeah, that the Jaguars team, if they do get him, Trevor Lawrence is gonna have a lot of time, and he still needs receivers. So I'm pretty sure they're gonna go after some receivers in free agency. And in other news, the Cowboys are releasing Greg Zuerlein, and they also waived tight end Blake Jarvin.
A little surprised about that, but not. I mean, I'm surprised with Blake Jarwin getting released because he played decently this year. Now, granted, he wasn't as good as Schultz.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, he wasn't as good as Schultz, obviously, but he was a very good tight end too. And when you release Amari Cooper, you're taking a weapon away. I would have expected them to keep the rest of their pieces on offense, but who knows what they're going to do with that tight end spot now? Maybe they draft one.
Hey, they have room, they have receivers anyways, so it's not the end of the world for them because they still have that offense. And in other big news, the Raiders just signed one of the best pass rusher in Max Crosby to a 4-year, $98 million contract extension.
Yeah, Max Crosby had a hell of a year this year. I don't disagree with paying him. He's the biggest part of their defense right now, and he had a heck of a game in the playoffs.
Max Crosby had the most pressures in the league this year. At the end of the regular season, and you could see why. Some of these Raider games I was watching, he would consistently beat double teams. He'd consistently just beat on the lineman he was going against, and always got pressure.
Yep, always. And he's doing it with not very much help.
Yeah, and the only other notable one would be a Carl Nassib. He's been
Yeah, he's
pretty
been
decent.
solid.
And then I forgot his name, but on they also have someone they picked up or drafted, but they still have their pass rush were really good this year, and one of the main reasons was Max Crosby, and one of the reasons why they made it to the playoffs.
Correct.
And going back to my Falcons, the Falcons restructured the contract of quarterback Matt Ryan again for a second year, and they created $12 million worth of cap room ahead of the new league year. And
That's huge.
yeah, it's really huge because with Calvin Ridley saving us to $11 million because he likes gambling, um, Matt Ryan saved us 12 as well for restructuring his contract, and so we have a lot more for room, a decent amount of room to work with.
The Bears are releasing starting nose tackle Eddie Goldman.
Yeah.
Not huge news, but this is obviously the Bears are creating some roster space to sign some players this offseason.
And Eddie Goldman, he's decent. He's a decent tackle, defensive tackle, and he was used he was used decent in his time with the Bears. Also, Lamarcus Joyner is re-signing a 1-year deal with the Jets. Another prove it deal. Even though Lamarcus Joyner did kind of play decent for that Jets team, but the Jets defense is getting better and better, especially with the Quinn and William, and his brother.
Yeah, they Marcus Joyner is a good safety. That's going to help them, especially because I feel like their safety room hasn't been as great as it was when they had Jamal Adams. So this is a good pickup for them.
Yeah. Um, I think I really hope to see Zach Wilson develop a little more in his second year. Throughout the back half of the season, he got kind of settled a little bit. Didn't have that as bad as that bad of games as he did have before. The only thing was that they kind of switched him out at times, even when he wasn't injured, and I get it kind of messes with a quarterback psyche a little bit, and I
Yeah.
don't think I agree with doing that.
I don't agree with doing that at all. I actually a very good representation of that happening was rookie year for Gardner Minshew. They had Nick Foles. Obviously, they paid him the $22 million. He gets hurt game one. Gardner Minshew comes in. Nick Foles gets healed up like week 8, week 9. They take Gardner Minshew out, put Nick Foles in. The team sucks. They let Nick Foles play for 2 games, and they put Gardner Minshew back in. Then Gardner Minshew sucks. And I think if they would have just let Gardner Minshew finish out the season, it would have he would have looked a little bit better.
Yeah, and just by doing that, I still feel like they should have let Nick Foles finish out that season because he was coming
Yeah,
back from injury. I
yeah,
really
one or the other. One or the other.
yeah.
You either Nick Foles the guy, finish him out, or Nick Foles comes back, put Gardner Minshew in anyway, and let him ride.
Honestly, they kind of messed up there because if they could have had Nick Foles for another year. I think he might have actually played well enough if he
Yeah,
got
I
another
mean, but we
year.
got Trevor now, so I'm not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we only won one game the year before, and that's because we had basically a QB competition between Gardner Minshew, Mike Glennon, and Jake Luton.
Jaguars haven't had a quarterback in a while. I mean that one year with Blake Bortles playing out of his mind. Yeah, also talking about the Bears again, they just released running back Terry Cohen. We haven't heard that name in a while, and Terry Cohen, a couple of years ago, he was heavily talked about as being such a shifty, small running back.
Yeah, I actually really like um I actually really like Cohen. He's always been like a speedster to me. Like he's always really fast. He's small and agile. So I was a little surprised at that, but like I said, I think the Bears have some big plans this offseason.
hmm And the Jaguars, excuse me, they also released running back Carlos Hyde. I'm pretty sure this is just to make room for Travis Etienne and whoever they want to get in the running back
Yeah,
room.
and this is huge for Jacksonville Jaguars morale because he came in under Urban Meyer and he was getting way too many snaps when you have James Robinson on your team. Way too many snaps, way too many third down plays Carlos Hyde was in. So the fact that we're releasing him is like super awesome.
Yeah, and talking about the Raiders signing Max Crosby, one of the linebackers who's played well for them, and Corey Littleton, they released him. They just paid Max Crosby, so I'm pretty sure they're going to easily be able to find another middle linebacker. But they also just drafted a middle linebacker too, and he's played really well. Um, I I've, I forgot his name, but he has a really cool name. I just forgot what it was. And he's played well in his rookie year.
Okay, 1 second. I have to pee.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, and Corey Littleton, he's played well, and he's kind of developed a little bit, I'd say. But releasing him, a lot of teams are gonna go for him as well. And I did want to go back to that, to the Falcons restructuring Matt Ryan because this is the second year they've done that, and the Falcons really need defensive help. With what we have, we don't really have too many pieces. AJ Terrell, amazing corner. You guys saw it this year. But one pieces. But we also have a good linebacking core in Deion Jones, who didn't have a who didn't have the best season this year, but he still played decent. And also breakout Foyesay Oluokun, big linebacking core, and then we have Grady Jarrett as well, who can also play. So you got some pieces there. If we can just find a pass rush and find good defensive help with safeties as well, I don't think Eric Harris was a great safety. I think it was decent enough to get the job done. But I think we definitely need to find a safety. If we could sign Tyrann Mathieu, that would have been huge. That would be huge. Um, I think the Falcons just really need someone to have pass rush in this year's draft.
All right, I'm back. I'm sorry for that.
You're good. In other news, the Cowboys are getting rid of an offensive tackle. They're having active trade conversations around starting tackle Lyle Collins, another name that the Jaguars could potentially trade for.
Yeah, I'd be interested in, like I said, any of these guys. Like I just got done saying, the Jaguars need to make sure they protect Trevor. We watched Joe Burrow make the Super Bowl, lose it because he didn't have an offensive line. Now, granted, I don't disagree with the Bengals going after Jamar Chase in the draft. Obviously, it worked, but for Trevor's sake, I don't want to see what happened to Joe Burrow in year one.
Yeah. The Chargers, they reports been saying that they're open to bringing back Melvin Gordon, but they have Austin Eckler. So if I don't think this is too big of news or anything. Like they're probably not gonna sign him, but if they did, he'd probably be a running back two, running back three sort of situation.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be too expensive. Not in the sense like I don't think he's gonna be expensive compared to like top running backs, but the fact that they are already paying Austin Eckler, like to add Melvin Gordon to the mix, like it's gonna be too expensive of a running back room.
Yeah, we talked a lot about quarterbacks in this podcast. They got traded, they got re-signed, Aaron Rodgers, but now a quarterback that hasn't played in 7 years, Colin Kaepernick. And there's more reports going around. He's working out, constantly working out, and even as someone said, quote, he's said to be in the best shape of his life. But take that with a grain of salt, because he hasn't played in 7 years. I honestly would love Colin Kaepernick for able to get a job, especially teams that don't have a quarterback. You gotta take that chance. I mean, are you really just gonna say, okay, I'm fine with losing the whole season? I think we talked about this last podcast.
Yeah, this is a tricky one because it all depends on he's got to be willing to accept a backup role, in my opinion. I agree. There's some NFL teams that don't have a quarterback, but he would have to be a there would have to be a QB battle, and he does have a chance at losing the QB battle. So it can't be something where I have to be the guy, and if that's what's happening, then teams aren't going to give him a shot. But I do agree that he's probably good enough that there's some teams out there where you're like, wow, this guy could start. Like the Saints, for instance. I'm assuming the Saints could use Colin Kaepernick when their other option is Taysom Hill, who, granted, Taysom Hill could possibly be a slightly better quarterback than Colin Kaepernick, but Taysom Hill is so much more useful as a tight end.
Yeah, and I think they might actually just keep James Winston as well. He's
That too, I
back
forgot
too,
about him.
so but I just don't think James Winston is a franchise guy. I don't think he's ever been
Yeah.
the franchise guy, not even for the Bucks. Um, and and more O line news. If you guys love offensive linemen, and your team needs an offensive lineman, this is the free agency for you because the Titans are
Yeah.
releasing Pro Bowl guard Roger Saffold, and they're also releasing offensive tackle Kendall Lamb.
Yeah, this is huge. They just got done paying their linebacker big money, so I'm assuming they have to release some offensive linemen to make room in the cap. Obviously, Derrick Henry coming back. Maybe they're going to be even more run heavy. Maybe they're going to take some of the load off and try to get some pass protectors because these guys are really good run blockers, decent pass protectors, but obviously, that offense is kind of built around Derrick Henry. So maybe they're going to put the ball in Tannehill's hand a little bit more. Who knows?
Yeah, I I I wouldn't trust putting the ball in China Hill's hands because of that playoff game. It's kind of shown pressure situation. He threw 3 picks and the he forced in double coverage, and you had a chance to win the game. Also, he had a lot of pressure because what Mike Vrabel did with the time management at the end of the game, it was kind of weird. They let the clock go to 24 seconds, and they were like still running the ball
Mm-hmm.
before that, and they weren't even at the 50. it was kind of weird. That's just a really weird situation. And going to the Commanders, they re-signed Troy Aikman to a 1-year deal.
Yeah, that's good for them. I mean, he's a solid player on their defensive side of the ball. So um, the Commanders are gonna need a good defense with Carson Wentz being their guy. I don't think they're going to be scoring a lot of points. I think it's going to be a game managing kind of situation for Carson. So they're going to have to make sure their defense is up for the challenge to keep a team under 20.
hmm Yeah, and we're going to talk about our favorite team's notable free agents in just a second. We have one last bit of information for you guys. The Lions agreed to terms with interior lineman Evan Brown on a 1-year deal. Not too big of news, just something that has to be done. O lineman important. And now, Ian, if you'd like, Jaguars free agents.
Okay, so I'm going to name them and then I'll go through and kind of explain which ones I want, which ones I don't want. So the notable free agents, which Carlos Hyde has already been released, you have DJ Chark, Laquan Treadwell, Jacob Hollister, Cam Robinson, who has been franchise tagged, Andrew Norwell, Adam Gotsis, Jahide Ward, Damian Wilson, Trey Herndon, and Nevin Lawson. We're going to go through one by one. DJ Chark, 100% want him back on my team. I don't necessarily need him on a 5-year deal, but I do want him for at least 1 or 2 years. And I want them to pick up another wide receiver as well to match DJ Chark, Marvin Jones, and another guy. I'd be cool with like a 2-year, 25 million, 30 million. That'd put him at a roughly between 10 and 15 million a year. I'd be perfectly fine paying him that. Laquan Treadwell's number 2 on my list. Yes, I want him back. Him and Trevor Lawrence had a connection there at the end. He was a solid guy. I'm not saying I need this guy in my starting lineup, but he deserves a shot at training camp and to earn a spot on the 53-man roster next year. Jacob Hollister, he can get off my team. It's fine if he walks. He's nothing special. James O'Shaughnessy's another one. He can walk. Nothing special.
But if any of these guys would like to be in a podcast, definitely we don't mean to disrespect you
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, so my big thing, Dan Arnold has always been seen as like a journeyman tight end. But I think he's a top 20 tight end in the league. And I'm not like I'll get roasted for saying that, but he showed with a good quarterback he can be good in this league. And that's the only reason I'm okay with Jacob Hollister walking. He's kind of on the downside of his career. Like he's been in the league for a little bit. I would like to see another tight end get signed for this team. Maybe the tight end from the Bengals, CJ, or I mean possibly Gronk. I don't see that happening though. So yeah, I want one big tight end in the off season, but I'm cool with releasing Jacob Hollister at the moment. Cam Robinson got franchise tagged. Like I already said, the O line something we need to stick. It wasn't bad last year. The right side of the line was terrible, but the left side was good. That brings me to Andrew Norwell, another guy, left guard. He was good. He was solid. The problem with him is he's only good for about 10 games and then he gets hurt. So, I mean, I can understand if we release him, but I personally would like to see him. Adam Gotsis, he's a defensive lineman, would like to see him back. He played very well last year, considering. Jahide Ward, same thing. He played very good last year, considering all the hiccups we had, like everywhere else on the field. At least for depth, if we end up drafting at these positions, I'd be okay with them walking maybe, but I like them for depth at least, or to teach the new guys in the draft. Trey Herndon, I would be okay with keeping because he's a solid corner. Granted, I'm not a huge fan that he's like number 2, like corner number 2 at the moment. But Tyson Campbell's really taken charge. I think him and Shaquille Griffin are going to be 2 very good corners in the league. And then Nevin Lawson, he's another one we picked up late in the season. I'd be, he's kind of hit or miss. If he stays, he stays. If he doesn't, he doesn't. It's not gonna hurt my feelings really.
Yeah, and going to the Falcons free agents, it's not this is not in any specific order. I'm gonna list the names and tell you who I want to keep, who I don't want to keep. And the first one is quarterback AJ McCarron, and running back Cordero Patterson, wide receiver Russell Gage, wide receiver Tajay Sharp, tight end Hayden Hurst, defensive end Steven Means, D tackle Jonathan Bullard, linebacker Brandon Copeland, linebacker Foyesay Alokon, cornerback Fabian Moreau, safety Deron Harmon, safety Eric Harris, long snapper Josh Harris, kicker Young-Ho Koo, punter Thomas Morstead. So the Falcons have a lot of free agents that are coming up, and some of those names are notable and that definitely we have to resign. AJ McCarron, first of all, he's just a backup quarterback, so I'd see him if we sign him to like a 1 year deal. I mean, even like for $1 million, not even a million. I'd see that, but it's okay. I'm fine with him walking. Running back Cordero Patterson is a big one. Cordero Patterson got re-energized with Arthur Smith as his with Arthur Smith, and he just used him so perfectly in this offense this year that it's a must that we re-sign Cordero Patterson. He's such a big part of this offense, and he's been able to run the ball and been able to catch the ball as well. Wide receiver Russell Gage, I honestly think that he should be re-signed because he's been developing as that wide receiver one with Calvin Ridley gone, and I really believe that he can be wide receiver one on our team if we don't have anybody else. I would like to see the Falcons sign someone for agency, but I'd also like to see Russell Gage sign back because he's made some amazing catches. He's played very well considering what he's had, considering there's no receivers around him. Also, wide receiver Tajay Sharp. He was kind of just like there as like a wide receiver 3, 4 before Calvin Ridley went away. And he played decent this year. He's made some big third down conversions for Matt Ryan and has been a little check down for him. I'm okay with seeing him walk though because I feel like if we could sign somebody in free agency, tight end Hayden Hurst, I would personally like to see him return. Because that pair between Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst isn't a bad tight end at all. He's a really good tight end and can play as a tight end one. So I'd really like to see them re-sign Hayden Hurst because we need all the help we can get if we can't re-sign anybody because cap space is a big issue for the Falcons. Defensive end Steven Means. I'm okay with letting him walk. He's played well, but we still need someone for pass rush, and I don't think he's the guy. Maybe for depth they'd re-sign him, but that's about it. That's all I see. D tackle John Bullard, same thing. I don't mind him leaving. The only thing is depth. If they need depth, then we're gonna have to re-sign Bullard. Linebacker Brandon Copeland, yeah, he can go. Given the time he's been playing, I don't think he played too many snaps, but when he did, he was okay. I'm okay with letting him walk. A big one, linebacker Foyesay Alokon. He led the team in tackles. He was the true middle linebacker one. I'd like to see him re-sign him because Deion Jones still has his contract going. So to bring Foyesay Alokon and Deion Jones back, that's a really good linebacker core. If Deion Jones can play like he was before this year and last year, then that's a really good linebacking room. Cornerback Fabian Moreau, we signed him last year before the season started. He's an okay corner. He's been burnt a few times, but sometimes he's played well in some certain games. So I'm okay with letting him walk. And again, seeing him as depth, I'd see why we'd resign him. Safety Deron Harmon. I'm not too sure what to think of him because he's played decent, but at times he's played bad. And I think we resign him. I think I would be okay with resigning him because I think he could play well enough. And a crazy stat that gets over the head. I know our defense isn't the greatest, but this year the Falcons have never allowed a 50-plus yard touchdown. And considering how bad that defense is, that's just an insane stat. Safety Eric Harris, he got injured towards the end of the year, and he played well at that role. So I would personally like to see him back. I understand why we wouldn't though. And going to long snapper Josh Harris, I'm fine with letting him walk. He's a long snapper. We can find those easily. But probably gonna if we assign him, I'll be like, okay. Big one, another big one. My boy Young Ho Koo, he definitely needs to be re-signed. He's one of the best kickers in the league already, and
Mm-hmm.
the Chargers let a good one walk away, and now the Falcons have him, and we need to re-sign him. That's one of the big ones we need to re-sign. And then last but not least, punter Thomas Morstead. I see us just re-signing him for a 1 or 2 year deal, just if we need a punter, but I'm okay with letting him walk too. But in the punts he did play when we signed him, he actually did his punts were really good. And for the offense, that's not a good thing. We obviously don't need to put Thomas Morstead out there, so I'm okay with letting him walk.
Well, that's like I said, very fair. Um, like I said, some of these guys are like, if they sign, they sign. If they don't, they don't. But
Yeah,
I definitely agree with Young Hoku, Russell Gage, and Cordell Patterson. Those like as a someone watching from watches a couple games a year from them, and Hayden Hurst. Those are like really good ones that I'm like, you need to resign those, especially with Calvin Ridley.
yeah, that situation just went up worse for us. Um, but I think that's where we're gonna leave it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching our podcast. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like. If you'd like, hit that subscribe button. We do podcasts every week. We've been going strong. I think we've officially done this for a month now. So yeah,
Yeah, pretty close.
yeah, and we're about to get to that point. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to go to the link tree down in the description below, and hit that link. We have merch, really cheap merch. If you just want a sticker, it's really cheap. It's only like $5, and it's a pretty big sticker for what the price, and it's very worth it. And it'll help us out a little bit, trying to get equipment and stuff like that, so we can make this an even better experience for you guys with better lighting, better camera, and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah, and if you guys want a specific topic talked about on the podcast, please leave comments down below. DM us on Twitter, tag us on Twitter. Um, we're very active on our socials. There's two of us on the accounts, obviously, so he goes to bed kind of late, and I wake up kind of early, so it like kind of works out really perfectly that we're kind of always on. But yeah, leave comments down below on whatever you want to talk about. If you have questions about the NFL, because we also want to kind of focus on um, helping new viewers learn about the NFL, because the NFL is like, it's our favorite thing, but like really the NFL is so fun to watch, like especially when you start diving deep into some of these topics and stuff. And it just your football knowledge goes from like this to like this once you start like looking all this stuff up.
Yeah, 10 years ago I wouldn't have known any of this stuff, but now I love it and can talk in depth with it. And yeah. But yeah, definitely guys, if you can keep up to date on breaking news stuff like that, if you want to know the minute of something happens, definitely check out our TikTok. We post a bunch on there. I think we already have like 30 to 40 videos, and we just started the TikTok like a few weeks ago. So definitely check it out, and thank you guys for watching. Ian, any last words?
Why are you trying to kill me?
Maybe, but that's not the
uh,
point. Thank you guys for watching.
no, yeah,
Okay.
thank you guys for watching. Like I said earlier, if you're watching on Spotify, you know, bookmark it so you can watch all the episodes. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe so you can watch all the videos when they come out. We're going to try to get better about YouTube Shorts, but we're kind of trying to keep everything spread out as much as we can, because we really like the growth on TikTok. We really like the amount of views we're getting on YouTube on our podcast. We're getting a lot of views on TikTok as well. I think our PI podcast hashtag has like 43,000 when I just posted. So we've gotten like 43 or 44,000 views already on TikTok in just a short month. And I don't even think it's been a full month. I
No, I don't
think
think so. I think we started
not
end of
posting on
February,
TikTok.
like 21st or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was like 21st. I think it was the 21st. So the fact that we're already at 40,000 views in 3 weeks is pretty big.
That's huge. Thank you guys for the support, and definitely make sure you guys check out the Spotify link in the description. Yeah, if you guys are in the car and don't have YouTube Premium and can't listen to YouTube on the road, definitely that's what the Spotify is for. We're also on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Anchor. So definitely, if you're in your car, you need something to listen to, and you love podcasts, definitely check us out. PI Podcast on all those platforms. Um,
Oh, and tell your friends. Tell your friends.
yes, definitely tell your friends if they anybody even if you're new to football. Definitely ask us questions. We'd be more than happy to answer those questions for you. But
Yep.
thank you guys so much for watching the podcast, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.